gentlemen, welcome. I'm recording this after Hurricane Milton struck Florida in the evening hours last night, around 8 to 9 o'clock. Came ashore just below Tampa, Florida. There was no storm surge in Tampa, but the state has suffered flooding and high wind damage. So we're all recovering this morning. Several millions of people lost electricity. We were fortunate enough to have our power not go out. So we're safe and sound this morning. I want to take this opportunity to thank Bobby Wilson for joining us on this new endeavor for men in America. He did a great job and we're very thankful. He wants to go and do other things and he had a very busy schedule, so he's withdrawing from the program and we thank him. Now we have recruited a new person, a person you may know in Arizona, Ken Bennett. Ken Bennett was former Secretary of State, was a state senator for many years, was even president of the state Senate. Ken is going to join us in 2 weeks. We'll record the show on October 24th, and we'll release it on October 25th. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the notification button or bell. And we're still on YouTube and Rumble, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks. We may have a special show next week. It just depends on if we can work out a guest. Therefore, let's get the show started.
Wayward ways without a lot of forethought. And it should, I mean, this is, if it's not criminal, it should be.
Yeah.
If it's not criminal, it should be.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, it's.
And the thing is, Don, but the thing is, they told us.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
they told us they were.
Yeah. What's her name? The John Pierre or whatever her name is in the White House. She said it. She announced it at least 2 or 3 times, and even Mayorkas announced it twice that they were out of money and they used them on illegals. So, yeah, we all knew that. I was actually sending out information and emails about that a few months ago because we knew they were spending it. We knew they were spending it on the illegal. So now that's denial, right? I don't. These people.
And they spent it because it was easy money to justify and grab.
Yeah.
So if it's an emergency, we can handle it. But I thought there was no emergency at the border. But they're using emergency funds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's just a bunch of lies.
Yeah, I was really hoping that more Republicans would speak out about it. I don't know how it's been in Arizona as far as your congressmen go.
Well, you got to wonder if the press just isn't giving the coverage they want.
Maybe that's it.
Or need,
We haven't heard much out of DeSantis has been making the most noise, and he's basically said he hasn't really. They've applied for some FEMA stuff. They've asked for it, and and it's been agreed to. But he says he hasn't dealt with it any more than that. They've been doing everything with state resources.
We are the people we've been waiting for.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's right. So And then today Kamala called DeSantis a coward because he wouldn't answer her phone calls. And so I was watching DeSantis in a news conference, and he said, quite frankly, she's not in the chain of command. He talks to the FEMA director and the president. She's not even part of this. So I'm busy with my state saving people's lives, and I don't have time to play games with her. So I didn't know she called, and I don't care if she called, and I'm not going to call her. So
good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, that DeSantis is a very, very good leader.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah.
He wants his first job is senior to his own ambitions, and that's to do a good job for the state. And I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, we do too. Let me tell you, I was disappointed that he thought about running for president because we want him to be our governor. We told him that. We wrote him before the election when he was reelected, and we said, look, concentrate on being the governor of Florida. Get that job done, and then go do whatever you want to do. But so he finally came to his senses and realized that. But I don't think he was listening to me. He probably had people.
No.
Go ahead.
Well, I got to be honest. Look, I was a big DeSantis supporter.
Oh, there's a lot of we love him too. Yeah.
In that, but this way we can get Trump back in and still keep DeSantis in Florida.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
and when JD, the vice president now, if he could be the president for 8 years and have DeSantis as his VP, and then DeSantis can take over. He's still going to be a young guy.
Yeah.
Both of them are. So.
Boy, wouldn't that be a great way to go?
We laid it. Patty and I laid it out for that'd be 4, 8, be 16. That'd be 20 years of 20 years of real good leadership, right?
Well, that's what it's going to take.
Oh yeah.
To get back on track. I mean,
no.
We didn't create this mess in a day, and we're not going to get out of it in a day.
No, that's right. No, you're exactly right. I know.
It's a lot easier to jump in the tar pit than it is to get out and clean it all off.
Oh, yeah.
So it takes a long time, and we've got, and the problem is the politicians don't want to pay the price. And I'm hoping the American people will eventually understand the hardships we're going to have to go through. And not necessarily that it has to be all pain and agony, but we're going to have to start climbing the hill.
Yeah.
And the sooner
we have to start where we're at right now,
Yes.
Yeah, because that's
because it's just going to get steeper and longer.
Yeah.
The more,
Yeah, that's right. So, we just keep praying and get everybody, like they say, take 10 people to vote with you, or tell 10 people to go vote, because that's important. I see yesterday was the last day to register in Arizona.
Yes, yesterday, October the 7th. Yeah.
So, that's something you can watch, is make sure nobody registers afterwards, or they open up some window for them because of some flaky reason, right?
Well, and it's important. All my children are registered to vote. I do have one out of the country, but we're hoping to find a way to get him to vote. And all of them also are, I'm not going to say steeped in constitutional theory and education, but pretty good, because we have, that's what the dinner table is for, these conversations and discussing these things. And
that's where
my kids. Go ahead.
I was going to say, when I was growing up, that's where I heard it all, at the dinner table when it was politics. I never got to talk. I was only, don't
you were absorbing.
I was muted.
Children are to be seen and not heard.
That's right. So, but I listened carefully, and the first presidential convention I watched that was on TV was 1954. It was Eisenhower.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I remember that convention. I was laid up I had stepped on a nail outside, running around the neighborhood, all the way through my foot. So I had, and it got infected, of course. So I had all the special treatment going on to get all that nasty stuff out of my foot and the infection. And so I had to sit in front of the TV. So I watched the convention.
Well, that's great. Well, my kids never got the memo of kids are supposed to be seen and not heard, because they always give their opinion.
Oh yeah,
but
that's good.
And that was good, because they learned that their dad did not base my opinions just on emotion.
Right.
That we had constitutional facts, and this was throughout Obama's administration, even back to the Bush administration, through Trump and of course Biden, and I think it's really important to go over that, because as much as I love my mom, she is a very left-wing Democrat, and I love her dearly, but I don't think rationally you can walk her through. If A equals B and B equals C and C equals D, then A must also equal D. And she'll go up to all that and agree, and then all of a sudden say, no, that's not what we were talking about. And so, rational thought only goes so far.
Yeah.
But but the kids, if we don't talk to them,
Yeah.
they
Somebody
start. And
else
I'll
is
give you,
going to. Yeah.
they had my daughter was within some AP classes, and and also in baccalaureate history, IB history, and things, and in an English class, and they did divide the group up and have some serious debates on abortion and other issues. Yes, in a public high school.
That's pretty cool.
And
yeah.
and it was her and two others in a class of about 30 students. You had 3 on one side defending pro-life and 27 on the other side. And I was just very proud of her for sticking up for what she believed in.
That's great.
And being prepared for that debate, by the way. And from what I heard from one of the other students that was on her side was like, oh my gosh, she did just wonderful in doing it all. And
great.
Anyway, that makes a father very proud.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So how many kids do you have, Jeff?
Have 4. Oldest is almost 30.
Okay.
The youngest is 18. So she just finished up high school.
Okay. So are they 3 of them all over the country? One of them, she's still living with you?
Yeah, she's still living with me, going to the University of Arizona,
Oh,
but
good.
and is a thinker for herself, but will let you know her opinion.
Yeah.
But is wise enough to gain counsel, and then my next one is very independent thinking. I wish he'd think a little more like I did, but also thoughtful and not just emotional based, but likes to get his facts known. And he's married to a wonderful woman. And I think I might have told you that story before, where we had a debate at the dinner table about the Civil War.
Yeah.
Did I tell you that story?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And so she kind of got the memo that opinions should be weighed upon your expertise in a certain area to some degree. Because we have been let down by so many experts. But the point being, you just can't have emotion and say, yes, this is the way it is, and isn't my opinion as valid as yours? Well, it could be if you've researched the topic.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm grateful for them, because you do see a lot of youngsters these days automatically tending to go left, because it's more of an emotional based, feeling based.
Oh yeah.
and
the bleeding hearts. Yeah.
But don't really understand the Constitution, and it's becoming compounded, Don, quite frankly, because not only is it emotional based, but then they're being taught falsehoods about our history and our founding. And so when you combine that, you get what's happened with the campuses on the pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel.
Yeah.
Now look, and I shouldn't even say pro-Palestinian. It's fine to be pro-Palestinian, but pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah, where you have these emotional decisions, and then they get taught half the truths, and they don't know the Paul Harvey rest of the story, and they don't do any work on their own to try to dig it out and discover it.
Right.
And and by the way, though, we do a poor job of correcting them.
Yeah.
Because even though October 7th and the anniversary was yesterday, so we probably should bring that up.
Yeah.
It's a year ago.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there like Ben Shapiro and others trying to correct the record straight. But quite frankly, when you have Ben Shapiro teach, who I really respect and think he's got a great perspective on this, but a lot of people say, well, of course he's going to say that.
Yeah.
Because he's a Jew and he is a Zionist and wants to promote Israel and these kind of things.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't take away from what he has to say. But others of us should be listening to him and others to get all the truth that we can. Who's the English? What's it? Murray. Right. Douglas Murray.
Yeah, Douglas Murray. Yeah.
I think he carries he speaks loudly and carries a big stick. He's not like Teddy Roosevelt, speaks softly and he speaks loudly, but he's got a great handle on the moral fight that's going on over there.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, because we've taught such these false narratives for years about our own country, and the fight in the creation of Israel and the creation of other states, right?
Yeah.
After World War I and II, how they were created, that's just as valid as any other state. And the whole history of that needs to be well understood. But the problem is many of these people that have been such anti-Israel proponents are almost embarrassed to learn the truth, and they're so vested in it they can't change their mind.
Well, the problem, Jeff, is that these kids are not being taught critical thinking, and if they don't research things and get the answers themselves. That used to be why you went to college, right? To find out those answers and find out things that you may not have known, or you grew up with one way and it just turned out. I guess I was lucky going to the University of Colorado. It wasn't necessarily it's not a conservative school by any means, but in the courses that I was taught and the stuff that I learned, nothing discouraged anything that I knew when I was growing up. My grandfather didn't like FDR, and
right.
he didn't, and he liked Truman because he thought he was honest. He thought Truman,
and I believe he was a good judge of character then, because I think Truman was honest.
Yeah. And so I didn't have any. I guess as we got into the Eisenhower administration, he seemed to be a real popular guy anyway. He was a popular general, so it seemed natural that he was going to become the president, and
right.
That happened, And so nothing that when I went to college, nothing really swayed me to go weird.
Right.
I thought I was on the right track. So, and I didn't run into a lot of people that were really, wow. There were people protesting against the CIA and the interviews on campus and stuff. And the Vietnam War was going on, so there were mild protests about that. But nothing out of hand, nothing crazy, So.
I agree with you on the critical thinking aspect, but you really have to become educated on a subject to critically think about it.
Yeah.
So in other words, we could critically think about the Hamas-Israeli conflict or Hezbollah or the Middle East, and we could critically think about it. But without the information we need, if it's bad input, you're going to have bad output.
Yeah.
And the problem is, even if students or children are taught to critically think, like, how can I maneuver around this argument or this or this? If they don't have the basic foundation of information and education, and how are they really going to understand? It's kind of this new age talk of judging people in the past. To critically think, are we going to keep up statues, or how are we going to look at Lincoln or Churchill, or the soldiers in the Confederacy? If you do not have a sound basis in history, you cannot be. Look, even history is hard enough to learn by itself. The great book by Lydell Hart, Why Don't We Learn from History? Even if you're a lifetime student of it, you've got to say, okay, what I'm reading, we need to be critical of and get different sides of the story here. And
did you study history in college?
No, aerospace engineering.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I was in too, but we had to take an English class, and we had to take a history class.
I did.
We had to take history before 1865 and history after 1865.
No, I had a military history class I love my engineering, but if I had to do it all again, I love the history classes so much, and the classics, reading Aristotle and Plato. So we had very little electives, but all the electives I could take. I loved every single elective class I had.
Yeah.
and
Good.
really just enjoyed that.
So I have my son and daughter. My son is 45. And he lives in Colorado Springs. He's in construction, and my daughter is 47 now. I think 47. She's a hospital director for Advent Health. So they're grown and they have their ways, but they're both. I don't have any disagreements with them on the political side about anything, you know.
Yeah.
They understand. My son is right now. He is so angry with the Democrats. It's hard to talk to. he really gets fired up. But and this FEMA thing is just. Let me ask you this question: the FEMA thing.
And then after that, I got a question for you.
Sure. Do you think this FEMA thing is going to affect some people and how they vote? If they're hearing about the wasted money and everything, and that Americans are not getting the help they need, and what's going on in North Carolina, and we get a lot of information. We're closer to North Carolina than you are, and we might be getting more than you guys. We got people going up there and working and doing stuff, and now they've all had to run back down here to get ready for Milton. But I just can't help but feel that if people realize what they've done with that money, and the Americans up there, they're really angry in North Carolina. I mean, they really are.
Well, here's the spin. The answer is, look, I was just talking about this to a friend. Sam Adams, early before the first shots were fired in the Revolution, could not understand how the rest of Massachusetts and the colonies couldn't see what he saw.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with Joseph Warren and a lot of the John Hancock, a lot of the early patriots. And you had some letters going back and forth, but they consoled themselves like, look, they don't see, we need to be patient, wait for them to come along. And they were, and they had help from Patrick Henry and others in different colonies to help show the light. And eventually, enough, I'm not saying a majority, but enough colonials and patriots saw the light that they could do what they needed to do to take care of business.
Right.
I have a hard time understanding how those on the left, Democrats in general, how any Democrat or Republican for that matter, never Trumpers, I can't understand how you wouldn't vote for Trump, but I cannot understand how you would vote for Kamala.
Yeah.
Okay. I do understand. And I really have a hard time trying to figure out, if you really understand the history of the last 4 years and what this administration has not only done to the nation, but the world.
Yeah.
And the future of America and the mess that we're going to have to clean up.
Yeah.
I have a hard time understanding that. So, yes, do I think it'll make a difference in some people's mind? Yes, but I have a hard time, it's like, guys, can't you see that they were lying about this and lying about this?
Yeah.
And instead, what they're going to do is spin it to climate change.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not the bad guys.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are not paying enough attention to man-made climate change. And instead of them being the villains, now I don't know but instead of them taking responsibility, they are going to point it to the evil people who don't recognize climate change as the greatest existential threat.
Yeah, even if that's
So
even if that somebody else is one of them, they're just not going to take responsibility for anything.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've told this story, but I caught my son one night, my oldest son, eating a sandwich. It's 3 a.m, and I get up, and my wife had made these sandwiches for a picnic the next day, and she told everybody, "Don't eat the sandwiches."
So he was
okay. And so at 3 a.m, I get up, use the restroom, and go out because I see a light in the kitchen. And Jordan's sitting there with the refrigerator open, eating this sandwich. And I'm like, Jordan! And he kind of smirked and, put it back and all this. And the next day I called him out on it. And he was like, I didn't eat the sandwich. And I'm like, Jordan, I saw you with my own eyes eating that sandwich. And then it was so funny because we were, just kind of going back and forth with each other. But he put his arm around me later. He goes, Dad, you haven't learned the first thing. And I was like, what? He's like, why take responsibility for your own actions when you can blame somebody else? And I was like, because he was blaming his sister or something. And I was like, Jordan, it was you. But I was like, I failed in my parenthood. But of course, he was joking. Yeah. But this is the left's mantra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why take responsibility for your own actions?
Yeah. You blame somebody
else.
Yeah.
And that's, but the point is, whether they know it's their own actions causing this or not, that's the saddest part.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to take his face and put it in the sandwich, but I didn't do that. So,
well, look at Afghanistan, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and they. Yeah,
it's just like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, to this day they don't admit that was
like peekaboo with a baby. Like you cover your eyes so nobody can see you. Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's just you just shake your head and you go, What are you people thinking? What are you talking about? So what's your question? So I got to know what your question is.
Yeah, my question to you is, what do you think is the greatest existential threat to America today? Because we know on the left, the answer is climate change. They have said that time and time again, and they haven't come off that.
There's kind of different answers to that question. One could say maybe loss of the value of the dollar and possibly losing it as the currency of choice to Brics. That would be that is really a threat to this country, and we've pushed everybody into what they're doing.
Okay. What else?
That would be one.
So what else?
In this country, for the economy, it's inflation. Inflation has infected every part of our system and in our country and all our people and wages and everything else. And it's like a tax, right? It's like a terrible tax. All of a sudden you've got this extra money you have to pay that you didn't plan on. And that's why everybody's suffering so much. High prices, inflation, all tied together. And I think most of it to me has to do with energy. And if we got our own oil and our own stuff and build up our own reserves, and we'd be fine. We have more natural energy than anybody in the world. We have more natural gas. We have more oil. And if we want to get it, we don't have to buy Venezuelan oil. We don't have to fake it, tell people we're punishing Russia for what they're doing and still buying Russian oil from India.
Yeah. Or Venezuela.
Yeah. So I guess those two things right off the top of my head.
Well, let me mention a few others, maybe
Sure.
to think about it. With the devaluation of the dollar, the national debt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. And the consequences that has.
Yeah.
How about a nuclear Iran? I mean,
that's still a threat. Yeah.
Look, foreseeably, that could be the most dangerous thing that happens in the world. We're talking about what could be an existential threat to the United States of America.
Yeah.
That could happen.
Yeah.
What about the war between Russia and Ukraine? If that isn't handled properly.
Right.
No?
I don't see that as a national, I never looked at Ukraine as a national security problem because it's in Europe, but for some reason we've taken this hardline position about this proxy war, which I think has been wrong from the start, but because I think I just think Russia's point has, I know it's not, overlook's not the right word. They've ignored the points that Russia's made about why all this began anyway.
Okay, well, this goes back to critical thinking then, Don.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
So you can't have an accurate, well thought Ukrainian-Russian war position unless you've studied the history
Yeah, that's right.
of both countries, and also go back to the fall of the Soviet Union and what the promises were of the West, either written or wink and nodded, right?
Yeah.
And what's going on, to be
Right.
able to have an accurate perspective of both sides.
Yeah.
But my point is, because of that and the lack of critical thinking, I think, and I agree with you, it should be a local war, but I think it's got an existential threat of being much greater than that.
Oh, it does if it's mishandled. Yeah. The
Because
key
it's
there is
being-
when you said if it's mishandled. Yeah, that's true.
Well, it is being
It
mishandled.
is being
know.
mishandled. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we've had opportunities, and I spoke to this on another episode. If you study the history of Russia and their warfare,
Yeah.
how they're always going to get gut punched at first, and then they come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But demographics are different. Existential threat of corporate and government collusion on different issues.
Yeah. That could
As,
be one.
as far as censoring.
Censorship. Yeah.
If you were to take one, well, that's what I mean, government corporate, like they did with Facebook and these other social media posts of trying to take off what they considered to be false narratives,
Mhm.
which actually turned out to be true, whether it be Hunter Biden laptop or face masks
Yeah.
or danger of COVID. But the greatest existential threat, in my mind, outside of a foreign policy wars
Yeah.
coming in, to me, is the thwarting of our ability for free speech. And that's why I give Elon Musk, because if they can take off what they think is false narratives or the lack of free speech from an open dialogue, I mean, you just look anywhere, that is the beginning of the end of liberty.
I agree. Yeah, you heard what the FEMA director said today, right?
I did not know.
She said that saying that FEMA mismanaged their money and they don't have any money, she said that's dangerous. Criticizing what they've done is dangerous. Now there you go, right? They always use that word when they're talking about censorship. Oh, that's dangerous, right?
Right.
Nothing they do is dangerous. Just when you call them on it, when you find out about it, that's the dangerous part, right? The transparency part. So
right. So instead of standing up and saying, "Look, we should have been more prepared," or at least defending, "Look, we had this other emergency, and now we've got this.
Yeah.
So we need more money. This is how we spent it. If you didn't want us to spend it here, then you shouldn't have told us to spend it."
Yeah.
So, but not all of them are cowards, and none of them have the forethought to think about how history is going to judge them. I mean, would you want to be the person on video, even to defend a failing president and his administration?
Yeah.
So you don't get fired for 3 months?
Well, I told Patty the other day, I said, who would want to run around with a FEMA hat on their head right now? You wouldn't even want to wear a FEMA hat up in North Carolina. Or a FEMA jacket, right? Yeah. And
so
go ahead.
No, it's just crazy. But that's why, we talked again about critical thinking, but you cannot critically think without a free expression of ideas.
Right.
You can't have a critical thinking on face masks or the Hunter Biden laptop or Trump Russia collusion if there's not an open book on what happened. You can't have free thinking on what happened in Ukraine if you have a suppression of how the Democrats, in many ways, the Biden administration and prior administrations, have taken advantage, and I mean individually for their own purses, because of the what's going on in Ukraine right now.
Oh yeah,
and what might we want to cover up.
Yeah.
You know, these things used to all be conspiracy theories that everybody thought you were crazy if you brought up. But now those guys with the tinfoil hats on are looking a little bit less like the Wizard of Oz and more like, you know, the prophet Moses.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I mean, freedom of speech is any threat to freedom of speech, any threat to First and Second Amendment is an existential threat. Absolutely.
So I really do think that that's the greatest threat.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of great threats, but the reason I think that is how many, you know, and I use a lot of my family members that have regular corporate jobs. How many of them feel free to speak out on what they believe to be right and true?
Yeah.
You know, or people that we know have to, you know, stifle what they're saying because it's wrong. Look, how many sports and athletic figures do we know that can't speak out about men and women's sports? How many athletic directors in the NCAAs or the coaches of these NCAA teams? I mean, I've used the example before, I'm disgusted by the coaching in the Division I NC2As, that there aren't more, you know, coaches just saying this is patently wrong, and they're more interested in maintaining their jobs, in being, you know, held in good esteem on campus.
Yeah.
So, you know, this stuff is crushing our entire nation.
Yeah.
And we need people willing to, and that's one of the reasons Trump is so good, because when he's interviewed, he'll tell what he believes is the truth.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes he embellishes it,
Yeah.
like how many people were at rallies and this is going to be, but he's not afraid to speak his mind.
Yeah.
But how many people are afraid?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah, we need more of it. We need, and I think that's a good thing about Trump is some people he infects them with that frankness, right? He makes other people stand up and realize that they can speak up, and
yeah, that Jay can do it too, and I love him for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love him for his courage.
Yeah.
And he is such a threat when you really think about it. I don't know of anybody else, you know, is you know, I do criticize Trump, but I also give him accolades.
Yeah. Sure.
And he deserves a lot of accolades.
Yeah. Well, he's not a perfect,
You know,
he's not a perfect person, and none of us are.
None of us are.
Right.
None of us are.
Yeah.
But he kind of is, to me. It's kind of like Victor Davis Hanson. He did a great tribute to Patton, George S. Patton.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of compared. He did a couple different ones, but he kind of, in effect, he was teaching Patton to teach us about Trump.
Yeah.
That, you know, Eisenhower said Patton's not fit to command, and he's all about himself, and his ego is bigger, and he comes first, and all the things that we've heard about Trump.
Yeah.
But guess what? He got the job done.
Yep.
And he was competent to that job.
Mm-hmm.
And his soldiers loved him.
Yeah, loved him and fought for him. Yeah.
And fought for him. And if you go back and look, this is why I love Victor Davis Hanson so much. He's such a great student of history. And he's a great example of somebody who's a critical thinker, since we've discussed that some today.
Yeah.
But he's able to critically think because he's done the work to acquire the knowledge and able to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And when you study somebody like Patton was so good because he was a student of warfare and history. I mean, you know, he read Patton's book.
Yeah.
He read Manstein's and Heinz Guderian's theories, and he understood the Blitzkrieg and modern warfare,
Mm-hmm.
and he was able to hit them at all different levels.
Yeah.
And unmatched. And Victor Davis points out, with hindsight, Patton was right on everything in the entire war,
Mm-hmm.
except for maybe one call he made in Sicily.
Yeah.
But everything else, he told them what to do, and when they didn't do it, people died.
Yeah.
And when they listened to him, and that's a pretty good batting average.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I to this day will never, I know why it happened, but I'll never understand why we decided to let the Russians go into Berlin and we held off on the outside and just stopped.
Yeah.
Right? I think that was such a huge mistake. And that proved out to be a mistake when we ended up with the Berlin Wall and East and West Germany and all that mess, right? I guess they thought it was best. They thought it was best for politics to do that, but the whole thing would have been better if we would have been the ones that got into Berlin. And
that was another one Patton was right on, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure, man, I've read so much, but I think it was Truman that really got duped by Stalin.
Mm-hmm.
And really thought he would be honorable to that. And I think Churchill was saying, you better be careful.
Yeah.
But kind of got overweighed with that final decision.
Yeah, Churchill didn't trust Stalin at all.
Churchill.
He didn't like FDR's relationship with Stalin, and Truman just followed that up. So yeah.
No, so we can learn from history. That is for sure.
Oh man, can we? Yeah, it's I think you and I are the same in a way, Jeff. That like I'll see something that I know nothing about. You know, I mean, something will hit me. It might be in politics. It could be in anything. Like I've been looking into this citizens broadband radio stuff. Have you heard of that?
No.
I don't know anything about it, but it's a whole new way on a whole new frequency to broadcast and with actual handmade radios. And
oh wow.
Yeah, and so I've been kind of diving in to try to find out, well, what is the hardware like? What is the software? How do you use this? What's going on? You know, so. But I think you're a lot like me in that way, that when you see something that you don't understand or don't know about, you get very curious about it. I get very curious about it.
Yeah, sure.
And I got to go read about it or find out everything I can about it. Not necessarily so I can go out and speak about it or talk about it with anybody. It's just a curiosity that's built into me. I guess maybe that makes us good engineers.
Well, but I think you want to be making the right decision, the Davy Crockett creed of make sure always you are correct.
Yeah.
Then go ahead.
Yeah.
You know, let's get the information we can in the time that we have.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
According to priorities. And the big thing is, you know, people want a purpose. People want a cause. And, you know, I think the big issue let's go back to like the Bush administration during the Iraq War.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his message was just go out and live your lives normally.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the one criticism I'd have of that is that's the exact opposite of what we should ask for people.
Mm-hmm.
No, our country's at war.
Right.
And you're going to have to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And because when people give, they're vested. When people feel like they're part of something, they're vested.
Yeah.
And our youngsters, we don't ask anything of them.
Yeah.
You know, we're not asking, and we need somehow to start asking more of them that, you know, this inheritance you've been given, stop treating it like a bowl of pottage and don't be willing to give up your birthright so easily.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea what it's like, the majority of human history of what it's like. You're the benefactor of, you know, millions of people sacrificing you over generations and even millennia to figure out the country that we have today, you know, starting in ancient Greece and Rome and Jerusalem and Israel and forward. So I think we need to ask more of people, quite frankly. You know, it goes back to the JFK quotes.
Yeah, ask what you can do, right?
Right.
Yeah, no kidding. So listen, let me ask you before we close here. It's like 7:24, so we'll let you go here in a minute.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of tin whiskers?
No.
Tin whiskers are a phenomena that happens when you have tin-plated components or parts inside an electronic assembly. And
okay.
And it can actually grow whiskers from the surface of that tin. They can
Hmm.
short out other places in that component.
Hmm.
We started researching this when I was at Raytheon. We had inertial measurement units made by Honeywell in our missiles, and so we got onto this tin whisker research thing. Me and a couple other guys over in the Raytheon failure analysis lab, and we tried to convince people that this was a threat. This was a reliability threat to electronics, right? Because this happens over time. It happens over a long period of time. It doesn't happen overnight, but
Right.
it can happen. It is a possibility. So we finally got a IMU out of a missile that had been in service for 3 or 4 or 5 years or something. And I took it over to the failure analysis lab and let them tear it apart. And inside, guess what?
Are you kidding?
We found
Wow.
tin whiskers, and they had grown inside this thing. So we
Unbelievable.
took that up to Honeywell and presented it to them. I did, and they realized, and they actually had a reliability engineer that knew a little bit about tin whiskers, not knowing that their product had that much tin inside of it. Right?
Wow.
So yeah, it changed their whole point of view, and we started getting these new IMUs without any tin in them, which was good, right? I mean, I was a
Yes.
reliability guy, so anything that affected reliability, I had to be concerned about. And I had
Yes.
I even had our chief engineers thought I was kind of off the deep end until I could show them pictures that they took of inside this IMU. So, that's something that I spoke up about, and I wouldn't let it go. I wouldn't let it die, and it was a good thing. I mean, it was a good thing.
Oh, it's a great thing, but the point is, without your knowledge, background, experience,
Yeah.
and intense study,
Yeah.
you could have never thought critically enough to solve that problem.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
so I just, my main focus after you brought up critical thinking is our children and we do not have the ability to critically think unless our foundation is a solid foundation of education on the matters that which we are critically thinking about.
Oh, exactly.
And you just gave a good example of, because somebody who didn't have your knowledge isn't going to come up with that, and they're not going to figure that out, period.
That's right.
They can critically think on it all day they want.
Yeah.
Or they're going to come up with something stupid and end up blowing somebody up.
And we had some other guys that believed it and believed it was possible, but they wouldn't tell anybody about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They knew about it, but I was on the SM3 program, so I was a reliability manager, so I just took the lead and said, hey, this is a threat, and
critically think, and then the courage to speak up.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but it's just you're right. It's just words unless you study it and understand it and know that it's that have knowledge about it and learn about it and etc. So anyway, good discussion, Jeff.
Don, thanks for your time today.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you have a safe trip next week. Okay.
Thank you.
You guys.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
How is Ebon doing?
She is good. She just started a new drug and finally got approved. She's off the chemo, and so we're just hoping this new drug is effective, Don.
Is this something that like that right to try law? Is that part of that she's doing?
No, this is actually a drug. They
This
turned her
has been
down
approved?
twice.
Yeah.
But it's so expensive. They tried not to pay for it, but the insurance is, and we're very grateful. And now we just hope it works. So.
Oh yeah, good. Yeah, well, we're praying for her. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay. We will see you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks we're going to be. I will. 2 weeks we're going to be on Thursday, right?
Good. Yeah, because the next Tuesday is my wife's birthday. So.
Oh well, tell her happy birthday.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you then.
All right. God bless everybody. Everybody subscribe and like, and we will see you next week. Thanks very much for watching.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.